Hey everyone, I'm Zenith Priest, and welcome to my introduction to Fathomless Mud of the Swamp, where I will give you insight into the nature of this spirit and show you how to drive off the invaders by turn 5. Fathomless Mud offers a little bit of everything, from offense to utility. They provide a steady stream of fear, and even have a solid defense power. We start with a sacred site in the lower wetlands, and get to muck around from there. Its playstyle expresses a skill at isolating the inner lands and an inexorable expansion across the island. This spirit offers no firm foundations, adding explorers instead of towns or cities when building in your sacred sites, so keep an eye on that build card. Our first growth option is to reclaim and place a presence in one of our lands. This will generally create a sacred site, preferably in a land that's about to build. The next option lets us place 2 presents down, each at a range of 1. Spreading out will allow us more options for sacred sites later, or we can make a new one. Either way, our focus should be making as much use as we can from our special rule. The last option grants us a new power, a new presence at range 2, and a couple energy. A solid choice when you're short on energy, or just need an extra power to fill your hand. Our Presence tracks offers us a moderate amount of energy and card plays, sprinkled with some elements in between. The strategy I'm presenting will make use of each of these elements to secure the final threshold of our innate power. Spreading and Dreadful Mire allows us to move our presence, generate fear, deal damage, and position to haunt, albeit in a slow phase. A little bit of everything, though at first its use will primarily be to destroy a new explorer. For our unique powers, Intractable Thickets and Thorns grants 1 fear and provides 5 defense in a nearby land. Simple and effective. Exaltation of Tangled Growth lets you and an ally gain a power for a cost. Note that if you're playing solo, you will be able to potentially gain 2 powers if you have enough energy. As a 0-cost card, don't be afraid to play it for the elements, even if you're not able to gain the powers. Foul Vapors and Fetid Muck gains a fear and allows us to push up to 2 explorers. This easily clears newly explored lands, even ones that may have a leftover explorer from earlier. It can also clear a new land that builds in your sacred site, which will add an explorer rather than a town. With 2 range from a sacred site, you can also clear things that may be too far to otherwise reach. Open Shifting Waterways lets us gather 2 Dahan into a nearby land, doing a damage and gaining a fear if invaders are present. This pairs nicely with Intractable Thickets and Thorns in more established lands, but can also be used to clear new lands or pull Dahan out of an area you can't control. Aside from our defense power, everything is slow. While sometimes we may have a plan going in, it's also okay to fill your card plays to get a certain tier of your innate power, waiting to plan specifics until the slow phase finally comes around. And with that, let's get started on a demo game. As mentioned earlier, I'll be using a strategy that pulls presence from both tracks, seeking to use the last threshold of Spreading and Dreadful Mire to clean up any remaining buildings. As a low complexity spirit, I'll be using the progression deck for powers and disabling expansions to simplify our decisions during play. Alright, let's begin. Turn 1. The invaders have explored into the sands. Creating a sacred site into the land we can reach seems reasonable, so let's start there, taking the presence from the lower track. If you're unable to place a sacred site in the initial explore, or if you already have one there, spread out as far as you can, prioritizing buildings. This will give you more options later on. With Intractable Thickets not being useful until at least next turn, and having limited energy to buy powers with Exaltation of Tangled Growth, that leaves Open Shifting Waterways and Foul Vapors and Fetid Muck. With only vague plans to mitigate the sand's ravaging and slow the next wave of explorers, we can proceed. The invaders build in the sands before exploring further into the jungles. Now that we know where the invaders are, let's go over a couple concepts for how to make plans. First, consider the timing of your powers. Your innate will push the hunt out, and Open Shifting Waterways gathers them in, so keep in mind your ultimate goal for the Dahan. Another consideration is when your innate power pushes a presence out, it can relocate or temporarily deconstruct one of your sacred sites, potentially putting you out of range of foul vapors. Next, remember that we can defend one land next turn, so we don't have to worry about clearing one of the lands about to ravage, the higher sands in this case. Third, keeping our sacred sites centralized as much as possible allows us some adaptability as the game progresses. With these in mind, we can use our Spreading and Dreadful Mire in the lower jungle, destroying the Explorer and pushing the Dahan into Land 4. Then, let's open Shifting Waterways to gather another Dahan there and solve that little problem. While it won't clear the land, Fetid Muck can push the higher Jungle Explorer into the sands, leaving us with one less Explorer to worry about later. If it was any other land exploring, we'd have handled both the Ravage and the build for next turn, leaving us in an even more solid position. Turn 2. We're going to let the upper jungle go, focusing instead on developing our presence. Taking the middle growth option again, this time we're going to pull from the top track and place a presence in each of the 2 lands left to explore this stage. This gives us reach to the jungle for when we decide to deal with it, and lets us quickly establish a sacred site in either of the lands as needed, plus enough energy to play our defense card. Add Exaltation of Tangle Growth in order to give us Tier 2 of our innate power. We won't have energy to make use of it, but one of your allies may have enough to spare. Defending Land 7 also gains a Fear, granting us our first Fear card, where Trade suffers, skipping all builds in lands with cities. That's not us, so we watch the Dahan clear the sands before the invaders build a city in the upper jungle and venture out into the wetlands. Now we can spread our mire into the middle wetlands and give our boon to an ally. Turn 3. With no cards in hand, we reclaim and place our presence from the top track into the coastal wetlands, stopping a town from building later. Our plays will be the same as turn 1, Shifting Waterways to gather Dahan for the counterattack, and Fetid Muck to give us options for stopping the next wave of explorers. Note that if we defended the higher jungle, we couldn't defend the wetlands next turn without reclaiming, which would slow our progress significantly. If you do need or decide to defend a land this turn, hold on to Exaltation because we'll have enough energy next turn to use it. And so we let the jungle blight, the invaders add an explorer into our wetlands, and proceed to explore back into the jungles. On the slow phase, foul vapors chase the new coastal explorer into our wetlands. The open waterways gathers the Dahan as planned, earning us a second Fear card, and the Spreading and Dreadful Mire moves us into the upper jungle, picking off the explorer there and setting us up for a nice reprisal. Turn 4. With the jungles our only threat, we have room to spread out further. Take the middle growth option once more, opening 3 card plays and placing it in land 5 for maximum influence, and the other can open up either element, though I prefer to take the moon since that gives us the option to open up 4 plays on the reclaim if we need to. The presence will go in the upper jungle to stop that extra town from building. Playing our hand, we proceed. After defending our wetlands, we reveal our Fear card. Isolation would remove any lone invaders before we clear the wetlands, gaining enough Fear to gain another card and trigger Terror level 2. Afterward, they add an explorer to the upper jungle and send out an excursion back into the wetlands. For this strategy, we could win next turn without gaining any powers, but for the purpose of touching on potential picks, let's grab 1 at cost 2 to simulate playing with an ally. Steam Fence is a really nice pick, as reaching the threshold to destroy a town is fairly simple. Without the progression deck, we could venture outside of elements if the effect is right. Opening up the 4th card play, we could still hit a high tier for our innate power with the other 3 cards. Back to our board, let's finish with Spreading and Dreadful Mire to take out the middle wetlands. Turn 5. We won't be able to clear the jungles with just Steam Vents, so let's reclaim and place our presence to make a new sacred site anywhere, pulling from the top track to expose the last of our element gains. We're looking to hit the highest tier of our innate power this turn. We still need 2 moon, so let's pick those powers, open shifting waterways, and intractable thickets. The last one also provides a leaf, leaving just a water and earth. Any of our remaining powers will do, although we're out of energy to make use of exaltation. Defend our land, and pick off the lone explorer with steam fence. The invaders retreat, but there's no place we'd rather have them, so we carry on. There's no Tahan for the counterattack in the jungles, so the invaders remain as they spread to the mountains for the first time. To finally convince the invaders they're not welcome, open shifting waterways into the jungle, dealing 1 damage to either building. Spreading and Dreadful Mire does enough damage to destroy both buildings, declaring victory after pushing the Dahan. Some final thoughts for Fathomless Mud of the Swamp. Play order is important. If you're not paying attention, you may wind up with the Dahan where you don't want them, or with your sacred sites now out of position. If playing solo, with Exaltation of Tangled Growth during turn 4, you have enough energy to grab 2 power cards, allowing you to pick up a 3rd with the last growth option, extending your hand by turn if the picks are sufficient. If not, don't be afraid to reclaim and carry on as I've outlined. Try to cover at least 1 of each land type with your presence. This allows you to do damage in one with your innate power, possibly clearing it, and creating a sacred site in the other to prevent buildings from popping up. If you have the opportunity, spread out as much as you can. This gives you more potential sacred sites to keep buildings from cropping up. Look at what might be exploring to help guide you. Keep an eye on your victory condition. I showed you a strategy played out to turn 5, but sometimes all you need is an early reclaim to destroy the remaining town or 2, either with intractable thickets or with the damage from your slow powers. Alright everyone, that's all I've got this time. Hope you gained some insight, and good luck in your next games.